Greetings and welcome back to the Casual Wargamer. A topic that's basically been out there since 10th edition dropped is this new edition any good? And people have had varying points of view on it. But I have noticed in the last week or so, there have been a number of channels posting up this very topic. Presumably because we're a few months in and we're starting to get the codices. And I think it's sort of getting out there now a little bit more. People have played games, they have their points of view. And last night, over on SN Battle Reports, Pardo did his Pardo Cult channel, podcast type thing, rather, talking about this very topic. And I've looked through the channels and comments that I've seen online, and I've picked a few things out that people have said to sort of like cover here and give my thoughts. The first issue that people seem to have is that the rule book, or basically the basic rules and the indices, were unbalanced. And I can't argue that one, at least with certain aspects. I kind of get the impression, and I've said this on here and I've discussed it with friends and fellow gamers, that I think 10th edition was basically a beta test and they let us, the community, test it. Find the flaws. They came up with it. We find the flaws. They fix them. Which I don't think was a good way of doing it. I think Games Workshop should have got proper play testers, whether that be the tournament pros or the channels that they really like, Tabletop Tactics, Liam Dempsey, so on. Get these people, or ask these people, I should say, rather than forcing on them. But, get people who know what they're talking about to test these editions and these armies out and see what they say. Leaving it to the general community was a bit of a bad move. Now, they have gone so far, I think, with the balance updates and things to rectify a lot of this. The game certainly feels now, at this point in time, to be a much better, more balanced game. The only aspect of that, I think, where they have failed is still with the Eldari. Changing points does not fix the fact that the fate dice mechanic is inherently overpowered. I would have made it for a number of free rerolls rather than here how I have this dice blah. I know that wouldn't go down well with Eldari players though. They like what they've got. But it seems like the mechanic works fine for the likes of Sisters of Battle with their faith dice. That doesn't feel overpowered, but what they've done with the Eldari one does. And partly this is due to units and weapons and so forth. I do think they are improving. So I think this is a complaint that was there at the start, but it's fading, especially as we start to get the codices. Speaking of which, the next complaint I see frequently is that there was no initial army release. We had to wait over a month, well over a month, to get the Tyranid Codex. I don't see that as a problem. After all, you want people to learn the rules first, and that's what they did. You want people to learn to play with the armies they've got, the new models that came out in Leviathan, and then when the codices come out, you get the new units and the new toys. So I don't think that's a legitimate complaint either. The next one on my list is about the Warhammer 40k app. You've got a very good app, it's free, and then all of a sudden they go, "Nah, paywall." That's not a 10th edition issue though. That's a Games Workshop greed issue, and they have sort of realised that, I think, because now if you don't subscribe to the app and Warhammer TV, I did for a little bit just to actually watch the animations, but I don't think they're worthwhile keeping the subscription. once the core rules are in there, once you put your code in for your codex, you can access everything for your codex. You can only build a limited number of lists. But then I use Battlescribe. It's far better. I just keep the 40k app for a quick reference of the rules and to make sure the points are correct for my army. That's a GW issue, not a 10th edition rules complaint. Rulebook and codices outdated before they even come out. Okay, I kind of do have to go with this one, but then we also have to remember that these things are printed 6 months or a year before release. I don't know the exact time frame, but they are printed before everything comes out, so I can understand why this was necessary for the moment. The only thing that's really an issue is, I think, now that I've made these changes to the rulebook and things like devastating weapons, they should either do an updated version of the rules as a free PDF, or, and you might, unlikely, but you might get it, at some point they should reprint the rulebook with the changes. As for points, at the end of the day, those points are going to change anyway with the balance updates. And yeah, I don't see that as a big issue. It's where they change rules and they change elements that are completely different to the book. And I get that. But as we go forward, I think that's going to sort of fix itself. I don't think it's a massive issue at all. Speaking of points, the next one is having effective power level but calling it points. And I can understand this, but we've had this for nearly a year. We had this from the start with Arcs of Omen, and that was obviously a test drive for where they were going with 10th. I even said this at the time with regards to the Arcs of Omen detachment, because it's basically leading you into the play whatever you want mentality of 10th edition. I will quite happily play it as is. That's not an issue. But yes, I do think that having points for individual things was a much better option. As people say, a bolt gun is not the same as a las cannon. You know, a plasma pistol is not the same as a melter gun. You know, a power sword is not the same as a basic close combat weapon. And also, you have the problem with unit sizes. You either take it, with the exception of things I think like Plague Marines, you have a basic squad size, say 5-man, or you can have a 10-man. There's no being able to take 7 guys. There's no being able to take 9 and adding a character in so they can fit in a drop pod or a transport or whatever. I would like it to go back to points. But the current block, this is what a unit is worth, is playable. It just means that you're always going to take the best option. We shall see. Maybe 11th will change. Maybe that will go back. The next option, or the next comment that I see a lot is that too many units were shifted to Legends and we have the death of Firstborn Marines. I agree. Too much stuff is shifted to Legends. They were obviously going to do it with Firstborn. I've been saying this since 8th edition dropped. I'm surprised it took them this long to do. Primaris was always going to be the way forwards. With regards to everybody else, I think this is a little bit of a screw up. In 9th edition, towards the end of 9th edition, we got things like the Horus Heresy vehicles. We got rules for those to be playing in 40k. And then, boom. No, they're a Legends unit. And the problem that I've found is that there are people, we have one at our local club, who will not play against Legends, will not play them, doesn't want to play against them, feels that they're unbalanced because they won't have a points update. Where actually, that tends to lead them being left behind as the edition goes along. I know it's not an option, realistically, but I would rather see them be willing to update the points and putting those data sheets in the codices. You know, it's not like the codexes have vast amounts of background material anymore. And with each unit being 2 blocks per page, you could easily fit a number of these in, and or at least do a Legends book. Do a single book that contains, or 2 books that contains all the Legends options, so you can have them that way. But I don't see why they can't update the points for those as well. Flavor is gone. No sub-factions. I kind of agree with this one. I do miss having specific mechanics for playing a specific sub-faction, your specific hive fleet, your specific craft world, whatever. I get why it was changed. Some of them were far better than others, and you would basically end up with bright blue ultramarines being played as Iron Hands, or whatever. People always gravitate to the most powerful one, and even the ones that are okay tend to get looked down upon and gone, no, they're rubbish. Always play this one. I can see what they're trying to do with detachments. So they're trying to make the detachments be your sub-faction equivalent. In the case of Tyranids, it was very, you play a different style of or element of the invasion of the Hive Fleet. With Marines, you've got a different combat style, which favours certain chapters over others, but nothing stops you playing any of them. It's not perfect, but it's something I think we can all live with. It's not an issue. I know people feel the loss of their sub-faction quite badly, but let's get the edition going. Let's see what they do. You never know. We might see that change as things go along. Another complaint that I often hear is, now that the stats have gone up, why are we still using D6s? It should be D10s. I can't agree with that one. Part of the game identity for 40k is the D6 system. It's partly what makes it what it is. It's the same with, like, some people complain about not having alterating activations. I can't stand alterating activations. It doesn't. I have tried it with 40k under previous editions. It doesn't work. It really, really does not work. It's not the same game, and Warhammer has a certain feel to it, a certain way it plays. And I think trying to change that in any measurable way like that, changing dice types from D6 to D10s or alternating, just doesn't work. I think upping the stats has done well for the game, because it means monsters and vehicles survive a lot longer. It's also frustratingly difficult to take some of them down, though, especially with the lethality of the game supposedly going down, which I think it has. Heavy weapons don't seem to do the damage they used to anymore. I do think it sort of balances out. So I can't really complain that as a issue. Rising costs. GW is a business. This isn't a 10th edition thing. This is a Games Workshop greed thing. Again, we can't fault that, but there is going to come a point, if things in the economy or global economy, how you want to look at it, don't change. I think Games Workshop will start seeing people not buying stuff. I think they need to lower prices. I've always said it myself. If you charged less, you would get more people into the hobby. I know some people like to go, well, no, that doesn't work. You'd get the sort of same amount of money. So, well, actually, no, you wouldn't. If more people can get into it, more people spend more, you sell more product, you would end up with a slightly better margin, but you're getting a much more positive spin on your product. People can go, well, it's not that expensive. Little Timmy can have this with his pocket money. Mum and Dad can buy it for him for Christmas, birthdays, and the rest of us at work can actually afford to buy stuff. I struggle to buy models. The only thing I'm doing at the moment is I've decided I like 10th enough that I am buying each codex as it comes out, which is something I haven't done since early 6th edition. But buying new models, new units is pretty much a every other or every third month job for me. I'd like to buy something every month. I'd like to put that money towards Games Workshop and what have you, but it's not going to happen while prices are these silly high. But that's not a rules issue. But I did it in for completeness. Now, the following one is a quote taken exactly as it was written from one of the comments to the Pilo Cult video that I mentioned from last night, talking about this very topic. Like an idiot, I haven't written down the name of the author. I should have done that, my bad. But they put the following. 40k is supposed to be a close contact skirmish game, very much based on the Second World War style of tactics, not all armies. You're supposed to be moving into range, gunning them down, then charging into combat, weapons ready, and killing your enemy in a brutal hand-to-hand for the glory of the Emperor, the glory of the Dark Gods, not this hide, run 5 men onto an objective, circle around, take a pot shot, hide meta. It feels less like a war game and more like a mathematical game. I can't disagree more. Completely. It is not a close contact skirmish game. People can disagree with me on this. This is a game. It is a skirmish game. That's kind of the point. But it's not a game that should have been based purely on close combat. It's not a case of shoot, run, smack in the middle. That's what Games Workshop wanted you to do in 8th and 9th, and it was awful. It was truly awful. Close combat was always overpowered previously. You'd get in there and, armies that were built for close combat had twice the number of attacks, often had higher strength, often had higher AP and damage, and you didn't stand a chance. Whoever got in there first pretty much did it. Now, assault and shooting feel more balanced towards one another. And that's a good thing. That's one of the really big pluses for me for 10th edition. Now, this last bit where they talk about not this run 5 men onto an objective, circle around, take a shot, hide, blah, blah, blah. You know what? The Leviathan deck format, the tactical objectives, whatever you want to call it, when it first came out, I can never remember, 6th, 7th, and then through, is the best way to play 40k. Previous editions, the default form of the game was, here's 5 or 6 objectives, go sit on them. That is boring as all heck. It really is. And I know a lot of it was built for tournament play because they want everything to be pretty much the same across all tables. So it's a game of skill. It's just boring. Having this where you go, right, grab this objective, get that objective, assassinate, do an action over here. This means you have a much more flowing game, much more narrative game. And one of the things that for me I really like about 10th edition is the fact that it is much more cinematic. It's much more narrative. It's fun to play. And with the Leviathan deck, I find it much more strategic. It's not a case of going, right, well, I know there's these 5 objectives here, blah, and I need to do this, and this. With the Leviathan deck, you've got to think, who is going to do that? How do I get them over there? How do I do this? How do I stop my opponent scoring their objectives? It's a much more immersive game. And I think this version, I did a video about the Leviathan deck a few weeks back. I think this version of the Tactical Objectives deck, the Leviathan deck, makes for a much more enjoyable, immersive, strategic game than we've had previously. It's a massive selling point for me. I know people are going to argue that, but hey, go for it. Lastly, the other comment that I see quite frequently is it's not 40k anymore. The flavor's gone. It's now AOS in space. and people aren't wrong. There was a big argument about this when 8th dropped because everybody suddenly realised, hey, they're trying to copy Age of Sigmar. And you can see that slightly more in 9th. And 10th edition is that another step. We're basically 40k is knocking on that door of Age of Sigmar and going, all right, cuz, open up. I'm not a fan of the Age of Sigmar rule system. 40k works better with it than I think Age of Sigmar does. 40k at the moment, with its comparison to AOS, is just right. It's simplified the game. I won't say it's simple. I certainly don't think simplified but not simple was the right keyword line for this edition. Even I have to keep flicking through and checking rules and checking what does that keyword do? What does that do? When does that trigger? It's still not fully sunk in, and I don't think it probably will because there's a lot to get your head around. But mechanically, 10th is in exactly the right place it needs to be. As I say, I'm going to wrap this up because this has gone slightly longer than I had intended, but there were a few comments to talk about. Of all the editions I've played, and I go back to Rogue Trader, this is the best edition. I wasn't keen on it when I was reading the previews and things, but now I wouldn't go back to any of the others. I absolutely love 10th. I want to say perfect, but it's not perfect. But it's almost there. Games Workshop just need to tweak a few more things, keep the power creep, the codex creep under control, fix the damn Eldari. Come on, a G-Dub. And we're there. Right now, I am seeing more players coming in to Warhammer 40k because of 10th edition than I've seen in previous editions. When I used to run our old club pre-COVID, we had a certain number of players. We would get some new bods in, but they never always stayed. People were interested, but whatever reason, whether it's cost, whether it's, whatever, not everybody stayed. These days, with our local game store, I'm seeing a lot more people. We've got monthly tournaments. We've got regular leagues. We've got like a football division of people. We've got 5 divisions of players, and most of those I've not met yet. But we've got people coming in. We've got people coming in and playing. We've just done the first round of an elimination tournament spread over a few months. And that's got people in that I've not heard of before, I've not met before. 10th edition is drawing people in. That's only a good thing for the hobby. More established, but older and perhaps tournament players, long-time players, are probably not happy with the changes to 10th. I get that. Nobody wants G-Dub messing with our game. But you've got to put that aside. One of the things I had to explain to some friends of mine, they gave up after the 8th launched. But I said to them, you cannot come into this edition and try and play it like it was 7th. You've got to treat it as a whole new game. Forget everything that went before. And 10th edition is exactly that. If you are trying to play it the way you played 8th and 9th, you won't get there. You need to come in and go, Warhammer 40k is this now. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time. But it will get there. And we will get there. Thank you for watching, guys. I know it's dragged on a bit. I appreciate it. If you got to the end, thank you. Please pop your comments down below. I would love to see them, hear them. Please hit me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. It will really help try and grow a bit. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing your comments. Take care. Good gaming.